Welcome, guys. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah.
Now, we're only drinking root beer, so this is legal. It's not something
This is
the high school might shut us down or something.
root beer. Root beer.
Mhm.
Yeah, this is
It's the root cause. Root beer.
Gerry, what food did you bring for us?
Well, we have meatloaf from Market of Choice, and we also have lasagna from Market of Choice.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorites, so I thought I'd share that with you guys.
Before we started, you said your wife makes a good meatloaf.
She does.
Is it better or worse than Market of Choice?
Oh, I'm sorry, Market of Choice is not as good as my wife's meatloaf. I'm sorry, but no. But I do like the seasoning they have in this and the sauce. It's pretty good.
Me too. I was hoping we could get you in trouble with your wife real quick to start off the podcast.
No, okay.
Why not?
So, for those who don't know, introduce yourself.
Okay, be glad to. My name is Gerry O'Brien. I'm the editor for the Bulletin here in Bend. I've been here about 3.5 years, and I've been in journalism more than 35 years, if you can believe that. I know I look pretty young for my age, but it's true that I've been around the horn quite a bit in journalism.
Yeah, you look late 20s.
Late 20s, yeah, late 20s. So, yeah, and I don't know. I went to school in Colorado, University of Colorado, for journalism degree. I worked most of my career in Montana, starting out at a small weekly newspaper, which was kind of fun. It was right in the heart of the mountains, right outside of Yellowstone National Park. Stunning place. I'm kind of a mountain man at heart, you know. And so Montana was a perfect fit for me. I worked in Billings and Butte and Helena in Montana at all the different papers as a reporter, as an editor, as a copy editor, page designer, things like that. So had a lot of experience.
Cool.
It's been fun.
So what got you originally into it, the idea of journalism?
Yeah, it's kind of a long and drawn out story. Not very interesting, but I'll tell it anyway. When I was in school, like you guys, when you go to college, you usually there's a lot of pressure to decide what's your major going to be, right?
Yeah.
So same thing when I was going to school, and it was difficult because I was an English major. I liked to write, and I loved to read all those great books and novels and discuss all these things, and it was fun. But obviously, you can't really make a living unless you're an excellent writer, and I was an okay writer. In fact, I was just okay. And so a buddy of mine convinced me to say, well, try some journalism classes. That'll improve your writing, which I did. And it did. It definitely improves your writing. It's more active voice writing, get to the point. What are you writing about? Tell the people, with English papers that you write, it's pretty flowery stuff. And you kind of dance around the subject. So it wasn't very rewarding. So nonetheless, I started some classes in journalism, and the deal was I was pretty introverted when I was in college. It's just pretty shy guy and wasn't sure what I wanted to do out in the big world. So journalism convinces you to go and talk to people, ask them questions about their livelihoods, their jobs, or anything controversial, what they're working on or whatever. And so I did a lot of that, and as I started doing that, it was kind of fun to interview people, and talk about how they got into their jobs. And I thought, I'll interview people about their livelihoods and decide maybe if one of those things kind of, takes with me, I'll go into that kind of business, that line of work, right? So trying to decide what my major is, of course.
Yeah.
So I did that for a few times. I would interview somebody, I would write a story about it, I'd get it published in the college newspaper, I would read it and, see my byline on there, which is a nice plus for your ego as a young kid. It's really kind of cool. I thought, oh, wow, I wrote that. Yeah, that's pretty neat. And so I would do that a few times. I would do it again, and I just kind of gravitated toward it. I just started to like it a lot. And this was during the time of, this was right after the Watergate period, which is, everybody wanted to be a journalist, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they had what is it? They had read All the King's Men, and is that the right name for that? I can't remember. I think so.
I don't know either, yeah.
Anyway, Bernstein and Woodward's book, and that All the President's Men. Sorry, that is like a textbook to journalism. You read that story and you read what they did. They just give you a blow-by-blow account of what they did, right? And how they interviewed folks. and it's really simply written. It's easy to read. It runs. You can go from start to finish really quickly, and it just plays by the facts. There's no flower to it. There's no like embellishments. So when I got out of college, everybody who wanted to be journalists had graduated at the same time, even people that had gotten their master's degrees, PhDs in journalism. And I traveled around Colorado trying to find a job in like a small weekly newspaper and things like that. And I was getting aced out by all these folks with higher credentials. And it was really frustrating. And then, so I was working in the restaurant business, of course, as you do, because that's the only thing left. And I got a call from a guy up in Red Lodge, Montana. He'd gotten my name somehow and said, "Why don't you come up here and we'll hire you on for that?" And the light went off, and I just said, "Yeah, this sounds great." I wanted to stay in Colorado, of course, because it's the Rocky Mountains. But when I got up to Montana, I was just shocked. It was like twice the size of the mountains even in Colorado. Beautiful country, very friendly people, and so I got into it that way. It was great. It was a wonderful experience. Good start.
Mm-hmm. Sidestepping from journalism real quick, you mentioned restaurant business.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if this correlates at all to the story, but I know that I was told to ask you about how you met your wife because I heard it involves a restaurant.
What?
It's a very interesting story.
Yeah, Jody has suggested something.
I hope you remember how you met your wife, or else you might get in trouble on this. But
well, actually, I did meet my wife. She was a reporter at the paper in the Billings Gazette, and she's a police reporter. And I think I know where this is going. I was trying to remember how that happened. But when I showed up, I got hired there, I don't know, in 87, 88. And she was the receptionist at the front desk at that time when I walked in the door. And all she said to me was, "Can I help you?" And I said, "Why, you certainly can." And I was smitten right then. And so we worked together. She was a reporter. I was a kind of a night city editor. She was the police reporter at night. And she loved that job just because, as journalists, when you work with the police, you have kind of a gallows type of humor. Everything's you try to be funny about things that may be even tragic events or difficult events. Mm-hmm. Deal with. You make jokes about it. Well, the police do that as well. They really have fun with their job when they want to blow off steam and things like that. So she loved working with the police because they treated her really well. They respected the newspaper, but they tease her a lot too. I mean, she would go on these calls with them about, say, a domestic dispute or something like that, and they'd tell her, "Now hide behind the tree because there might be gunfire," or something, so she was kind of worried about that stuff. But the best thing about the cops in Billings was they read the Gazette, the paper there, all the time. And if ever there was a picture of one of the officers in the paper, and it was pretty common, when they made an arrest or something like that, or at a car wreck, we would write the cut line for the picture in the story and all that stuff, and they would publish it. But they would cut it out. They would cut out the picture, and they would rewrite the cut line to kind of make fun of the officer that's in the thing, and they'd post it up on the board and stuff like that. So the relationship between the police and the reporters was really, really good. And so we worked at night. So what happens was, when you work at night, the only people that you can go out with after work is the people you're working with. So that's what we started doing. And we went to, I think this is where this is going about food. We would go to this kind of greasy spoon at night, eat big omelets with lots of gravy on the hash browns and things like that. And, yeah.
I was told it had something to do with a pizza place.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, she used to write. She used to make pizza, handmade pizza. Maybe that's it. But that was in a different city. When she was going to college, that's how she put herself through college, which is really a really interesting old, family-owned pizza joint. So that's part of it. So the thing is that Jody's husband also makes pizza. So we're going to have a pizza cook-off at some point. That'll definitely happen. But
it'll be on the podcast.
It'll be on the podcast. Yeah, we'll bring him in here for reviews.
Yeah.
And then, so I just wanted to, getting back into journalism.
Yeah.
I want to know, This is a bit of a broad question, but what's the craziest, most interesting story you've ever had to report on?
Well, I think I was fortunate enough to get a job. I was what they call the courthouse reporter, and that's we had two of them, or actually three, and I was kind of the dayside guy that would go around and talk to the different offices that are in the courthouse. The tax office or the assessor's office. Some of those boring things. But it was a beautiful old courthouse building, 4 stories tall, and all marble, made around 1909. I mean, the marble steps in the courthouse were worn from people going up and down the stairs all the time. Mm-hmm. And so that's every day, go to the courthouse, up and down the stairs, go to all the different offices, meet with people, get different story ideas, meet with the mayor or whatever. But we had but I would cover the courts themselves, the actual trials. And Butte at that time had some pretty dynamic murder trials. And there was this one. Butte had a reputation for being a rough and tumble town kind of thing, because it was an old mining town. And so the miners would get off the shift and they'd go to the different bars and they'd, drink beers and shots all the time and, get into fights and the usual stuff. But it was kind of a fun town. It was really genuine, too. It wasn't just rough and tumble, but, people were genuine with you. Again, that Montana attitude, they were really friendly. So there's also houses of prostitution in Butte at the time. They were still operating. And there was this one instance, I think it was around Christmas time, where this guy and his buddy had just gotten out of the Army. They were on leave. They were coming through Butte on a bus, going to like Minnesota or someplace. He was a white guy and his buddy was a black guy. And they went into this establishment, which is run by a madam called Dirty Mouth Jean.
Of course,
this
that's
prostitution establishment.
Yes, prostitution.
Okay.
So everybody has a nickname in Butte, right? And Dirty Mouth Jean was known for her colorful language behind the bar. She's the bartender, she's the owner, and the madam. And so these guys, they had been sent there from the bus depot by somebody, and they said, go down there to Dirty Mouth Jean's, and, they'll take care of you. And so, I'm not sure how much of this can be published, but or aired. But nonetheless...
We can air basically anything.
Yeah, probably. So I'll try to keep it short or cleanish. But what happened was, they were in the bar and they were drinking and stuff like that. And the black guy asked her about some of the women, and she says she got mad at him and stuff like that, and she was cursing at him, giving him a bunch of lip. And so the white guy goes up to her and reaches over the bar, says, you can't talk to my buddy like that, and he's like almost about to slap her or something like that. I mean, she was really going on. I wasn't there, so I don't know exactly what happened, but anyway, she had a reputation for that. And so, but because he had reached across the bar, or he was angry and drunk at her, she pulls out a pistol and shoots him and kills him.
Dang. Right
there. And so I had to cover the trial of that. And like I say, Butte had a couple of houses of prostitution. Then they had quite a few back in the old days, but this was the early 80s, mid 80s or so, and they were fading from favor or whatever. And so what was interesting about it is, like, classic courthouse kind of drama. They dress up Dirty Mouth Jean in a white kind of silk blouse and dress. She looks like your grandma, right? And she's got the horn-rimmed glasses that point like this and stuff like that, beehive hairdo. And so she's very sweet and kind and gentle on the stand, and the defense is leading her through all the questioning. What happened? He came across the bar at me, he lunged at me, all this stuff. And she's doing all that stuff. And so then the prosecution gets on for the cross-examination and says, can you demonstrate exactly what happened? And so the prosecutor hands her the gun, the actual gun, and says, show me what was happening. Now, Dirty Mouth Jean is sitting there. Well, her name's Jean Sorensen, but she's sitting there with a handkerchief in one hand and a gun in the other, right? And this is the photo that we have of her for the newspaper, because it's just...
If we could find it, we'll put it on screen.
It's dramatic, yeah. And so she's doing that, and the guy says, well, tell me exactly what happened. How many times did you pull the trigger? And she said, I think 3 or 4 times or something like that. And said, well, show us. She's doing this, and she's clicking it, and it's not really working. And next thing out of her mouth is, the goddamn thing won't fire, and the place erupts. And so, obviously the jury just said, okay, this is manslaughter in the first degree. So
obviously, yeah.
Yeah.
So he did die.
Yeah, he did die, unfortunately. Yeah, it was really kind of sad. His parents came out for the trial. It was pretty rough on them, but he was defending his buddy, and that's the kind of stuff that happens. When you're in journalism, you never really know what's going to happen that day that you go to work.
Yeah.
But Butte had a lot of fires that burned down some of the historic buildings and things like that because the mine was expanding. It had strikes from the miners. So, like I say, rough and tumble town. Billings was pretty much the same way. Billings was much bigger. Billings had a really bad gang problem from L.A. early on, and Vicky covered a lot of that, my wife, because they really wanted to nip that in the bud. They actually had the Crips and the Bloods, which are the well-known gangs way back when, show up in town, and so the cops had a big effort to try to get rid of them. So,
did she do many big stories on the Crips versus the Bloods?
Oh yeah. Yeah, we interviewed some of the kids right on the street and stuff like that. I mean, and that's the thing. You hear about this stuff, and people tell you, oh, this guy is bad, or he's got a terrible record or something like that. But you don't take their word for it. You actually go and talk to the people.
Yeah.
And when you talk to them, you get a whole different perspective. And it may be true or not, but the deal is, you just don't take anything for granted when people tell you stuff. You have to check it out.
Yeah.
And so that's it's kind of fun. It puts you in a kind of a difficult position sometimes, dangerous sometimes, but generally it's when you're done writing those kinds of stories, it's just hilarious when you get back to the newsroom and everybody's talking about it.
That is crazy.
And the whole town's talking about it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So how'd you come to work here at the Bulletin?
Well, as it turns out, our publisher, Heidi Wright, and I met in Butte. I think it was 2001. She just started as a publisher there, and I guess I was the editor there. And a brand new thing called the Internet had just started. And so I was actually loading things to the Internet, I can't even remember how we did that back in the day. It wasn't quite what you do today.
People put floppy disks into
it. there's those. You type stuff in. I mean, we had computers, but they were pretty awful. They would only hold 4K worth of memory for your stories.
Jeez.
Which, just real quickly, there's on those original computers, if you hit Control X, it would delete your story, right? And so I was writing something about a guy going out on parole, I think for homicide, or he's mentally ill or something, and his doctor was Dr. Xanthopoulos with an X, right? Yeah. And so I'm writing the story, Dr. Xanthopoulos, and I get 20 inches and stuff. 4K, fill up, and I go, okay. And so I see his name, it's in a lowercase x. So I said, I got to fix that. So I grab it, I hit the X with the shift key, I hit return, and I just wiped out an entire hour's worth of work just because of that. I mean, I lost it totally. So the old computers were really kind of a hassle, and you had to be careful about what you were doing with those.
Jeez.
That does not seem very fun.
No, that was not fun.
No.
That was not fun.
Oh my God. Okay.
I forget what we were talking about, but
yeah. You getting to the Bulletin.
Yeah.
Oh, right. So the day, one of the memorable day in 2001 was 9/11, and I was coming to work, and they just said a plane had crashed into the towers, one of the towers. And I said, oh, so I came in and I was kind of looking at the wires and stuff like that, and it wasn't a plane, but it was a jet, and I thought, oh, we got to get this loaded up. It's like 9 a.m. in Butte, I think, or maybe earlier. And Heidi comes in and she's looking at the TV screen, the broadcast that's going on and stuff like that. And just as she's looking at it, the second plane hits the second tower. And everybody's in shock, right? And I'm sitting at the computer trying to upload the story, and I thought, oh, I think we got something else going on here.
Yeah, there's around the Bulletin offices, there were a lot of posters of famous stories. On news events, and 9/11 is in the boardroom back there.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, those are dramatic pictures. I was amazed they got pictures like that during that whole thing. I mean, when it first initially happened, that somebody was in the right position at the right spot to get those pictures.
Yeah.
Which leads me to talk about, photography. Photography is such an important thing in journalism. Even if, if you're not talented as a writer, or you don't want to be a reporter, or you're not as outgoing, if you have skills as a photographer, that's head and shoulders above what a lot of people need for the newspaper and for our websites and for our social media. I mean, photos say it all, right? Mm-hmm. And we have some excellent photographers here at the paper. I mean, you've just seen the last few weeks some of the stuff up at the ski hill, some of the skiing photos and some of the fun that they had up there. Just wonderful photos, captures what's going on. So that's a good part of the job too.
Yeah.
And then I saw online that you were a finalist for I might be botching this pronunciation, but Pulitzer Prize.
Oh yeah,
Pulitzer.
Okay, yeah.
Not a winner.
What's the story of that?
So that's another good story. That's a war story. I was in Billings at the time. It was 1988, and the Yellowstone had caught fire. Yellowstone Park.
Yeah.
And there were 4 major fires burning from all different directions in Yellowstone. They were all like, they were worried they were coming together. In fact, 2 of them did merge at one point. I recall working the desk, I think it was in April or so, a Sunday night or something, and the reporter there said, "Oh, I've got a small forest fire outside of Stillwater somewhere." And I said, "Okay, we'll get that in." There's like a story about this long.
Yeah.
That fire was one of the major ones that burned up over the mountains and into the park, and that was one of the 4 that burned, and it went from April right through September, I think. Almost 2/3 of the park had burned somehow. But what was cool about it was we had 2 photographers that actually were airplane pilots, and this is the day when you do not have digital cameras, you have film.
Yeah.
And they would fly into the park every day or fly over it and take pictures of the fires and then fly back, develop it, and we would put it in the paper that night. Our deadlines were like midnight or something. But, I mean, they got up at 6 a.m., went out, took pictures, took a reporter with them. They did the stories and things like that, and they would come back. We did that every day for the whole summer.
Doing a story in an airplane sounds super fun.
Yes, it is. It's a little... As long as you're not airsick, right?
Yeah. Did you ever go up like in the airplane with them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a blast, and like these guys were just such excellent photographers. They would this one of these guys, and I'll maybe jump to this in a minute. Would when he did his landscape photography, he would fly his plane like this. He would tell you to take the wheel and tip the plane so he's like looking straight down. From open the window from the plane and he's looking straight down, and he would shoot that way, so he had a clear vision of what to shoot. But you have to hold the plane, perpendicular.
So you got to fly a plane.
Oh yeah. I didn't like it as much as I thought I might. Yeah, like this.
That must have been terrifying.
Yes, and you have to, if you know physics, you have to step on the gas too. You have to fly a little bit faster so the plane doesn't do this.
Yeah.
So it keeps straight. So yeah. It's kind of fun. So you saw the stories about the Chinese balloon that flew over Montana and got stuck there. And it was over Billings, right?
Yeah, we talked about that on the podcast.
So one of these photographers, his name's Larry Mayer, he jumps up to the airport and sets up his cameras and things like that. And he was with another guy doing video. And he got a nice clean shot of that balloon that ran in all the papers across the country and internationally. Right when that thing had blown up. So, yeah. So you never know what's going to happen, right? That's what's kind of fun about the job. And one of his MOs is like, you never delay on going out on a story or waiting to talk to somebody. You just go and do it, because if you get to the scene on time, you get a much better story. If you kind of wait and like talk to the official, report afterwards, it's not as colorful. You won't capture the flavor of things. So
okay,
yeah, fun, huh?
Yeah, that seems crazy. I think I would love to do something in an airplane, a podcast, write a story.
Yeah,
we'll do a podcast in 737.
Yeah.
Well, are you thinking about becoming journalists, or what's your kind of motive or motivation?
I feel like I don't like the idea of traditional journalism. I like videos and like the aspect of doing journalism through that, and
Which is, that's becoming more popular.
Yeah.
But I like the idea of like videos and journalism that way. I'm not sure if I'd actually become a journalist, but I want to study. I want to keep working with video in college and just see where that takes me.
Yeah. Well, storytelling is a big deal, and you can do it with video and do it with words. But I'm an old guy. I love documentaries now, historical documentaries, and they're done so well now with video and storytelling that it's just fun to watch those things.
Yeah. I'll be going to college for. I want to study film. That's what I'm interested in. I mean, I'll maybe like minor or in journalism, something like that, because this is super cool and super interesting. And I will go work for Vice and do those cool investigative documentaries.
Well, what's good about the training that you guys are getting is that you kind of know what your rights are as far as a journalist. There's a basic thing, like if you're on the sidewalk, you're in a public place, you can take a picture from the sidewalk. Nobody can stop you from doing that. Though sometimes police and whatever, they push you off. There was like this guy was talking about, the photographer. He one of the police officers was hassling him and says, "You can't take pictures here. I'm gonna call the chief and have you removed." And he takes out his cell phone, flips it open, dials the chief and says, "Here, call him." Call his bluff, because Larry and the journalists are well known in the town, and the police chief's not going to say, "You can't
take photos."
You can't arrest this guy. Just go ahead.
Yeah.
So it's sometimes you have to think on your feet that way. Most of the times it's not all that exciting, but still, you've got to be kind of the watchdog of government and things like that. But people don't have the time to do that kind of stuff, so journalists get to do that, and they come across some interesting stories from time to time.
Cool. So you have explained this to us in our group before, but for those watching and listening to the podcast, can you explain your process, the Bulletin's process to create an issue?
Oh yeah. Well, I have explained this. It's like building a car. It's like an assembly line.
Yeah.
Like I start my day about 5 o'clock in the morning, right? And I start looking on the websites because I can't sleep in, and especially now when the sun's up by 5. But generally what happens is the reporters are all assigned to different beats, schools or police or natural resources, general assignment, whatever it might be coming down the pike that day. They all come in and we meet about 9:30 in the morning. That's pretty late in the day, really, but 9:30 in the morning, and they pitch story ideas that they're working on, say something they've heard that might be interesting, or the editors will assign them something, right? So that starts the day out, and they do their stories, and the editors are editing stuff as it comes in. And of course, now we're posting stuff online as fast as we can, because you want to keep the interest of the readers. You want to keep them coming back to your website. You want them to subscribe, of course, and so you got to keep that interest up. And you're competing against a lot of other websites and people's interest. So you're texting, right? Or you're doing social media. You're doing Instagram, or you're doing Facebook. Just reaching out to the audience however you can. So as the afternoon progresses, the copy desk comes in. And these are the guys that will edit the copy and look at where it should go in the paper to actually lay out the paper. And so they'll make those decisions. They'll clean up the copy. They'll write the headlines and things like that. And then the design desk comes in. Now the designers are the ones that will actually lay out the paper. And I'd done that for several years. I really liked it. I guess, I was a real fan of jigsaw puzzles when I was a little kid, and I was trying to figure that out. And newspaper design, it's a lot like that. You have to kind of figure out what's going to fit where and how it's going to look. So I would do that. And so those guys would put that together, and then they would ship it off to the press room. Press room would get it ready for the plates, run it on the press. It's like 6, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock at night. It would come off the press. It would go to the distribution center. They'd insert all the ads. they'd send it out to the newspaper carriers who would drive around town and deliver it, right? So by midnight or 1 or 2 in the morning, papers were dropping on people's front yards, right? And then it starts all over again at 5 in the morning. So that's encapsulates what happens. But there's all kinds of things that happen in between that. Like you get phone calls, angry phone calls, or the public comes in and wants to talk to you, or something else happens. There's emergencies or whatever. Different things that happen. So it's different every day, and it's kind of fun that way, and it's also kind of mind-numbing sometimes when it is that different every day.
Yeah.
And then
you go ahead, Leon.
I was gonna say, what do you think of like the decline of the popularity in traditional journalism? Because obviously, the popularity of it is declining, and like, how do you think quality journalism is staying alive?
I think it's. I'm going to hand it off to you guys. You guys have to come up with a way to reach readers better than we do now with the traditional newspaper that drops on your front yard, because it's 24 hours old, most of the news, and that readership is going over the hill. So what I've found is that people are, if you write really well, or you write a good headline that's attractive, or it's a subject that people like here in Bend are interested in, such as outdoor skiing, or what trails are going to be open for bike riding this weekend. The weather's going to be 80 degrees. People are going to want to get out, but a lot of it's snowbound up in the mountains still. It's still that kind of thing. So if you write about stuff where you have to think ahead of what people might be wanting, and if you do that, they'll come to your site and find that information. And if you do that consistently, they stick with you. That's kind of the trick. But you also, you have to write well. You have to have really good photography or really good video now. You have to have a lot more kind of in your bailiwick to get people attracted to what you're doing.
Yeah.
So you have to be a lot more creative.
Yeah.
I mean, this newspaper has seen a lot. This newspaper has existed. There's a banner behind Gerry. You probably can't see it, but it says, since 1903. This newspaper is older than anyone alive today, and it's been through every era of...
It's actually older than the city of Bend.
Yeah.
Just by a year or so.
Well, then,
where did it start?
It was in Bend. It started in like a little log cabin.
So there was just one dude writing about all the people building around him.
He's up at 5 in the morning drinking coffee. I'm going to write about this.
Some farmer is getting all mad. He's starts writing a paper about how people are building and making a city around where he lives.
Yeah, right. He's predicting, I think you should buy this lot because it's going to go for quite a bit 100 years from now.
Yeah.
No, I mean, people, some writers just gravitated toward becoming a writer or a newspaper writer. I mean, a lot of your famous writers in the country, like Mark Twain, they got trained as newspaper writers.
Yeah. And
because they just like me, no Mark Twain, but it improved my writing tremendously. I mean, really, you can't underestimate the value of being able to write clearly, concisely, quickly, and getting an audience to read your stuff. So it's really kind of neat.
Yeah.
Still a little bit confused on the whole, because it's a year before Bend was actually established as a city.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, people were living here.
Yeah. Okay.
But it wasn't named as a city. It didn't incorporate as a city. Didn't have a city charter.
It was just organized as a group of people who were sitting around.
They were logging in.
It's like the covered wagons,
Yeah, right.
Like at the High Desert Museum, if you've seen some of those. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, Gerry, what's the most important lesson you've learned in your career of journalism?
Well, it's a life lesson, which is to be honest. Mm-hmm. Be upfront with people. I've been in some situations where I felt like you're tricking somebody on the phone, where you're trying to get them to tell you something, and that doesn't work, and it doesn't feel right, and it's just awful. I'll tell you a quick story out of Butte again. There was a reporter there. His name was Louis Poole, and I learned this. I was just a punk little reporter at the time. I the people in the courthouse really had a long history of working with the paper there too, and they helped you. They were very kind and helping if you were a newbie. But this guy used to eavesdrop on people's conversations and write stories about it. Mm-hmm. Like, he would hide behind a column or something, and two officials would be talking and stuff like that. And so the reporters were allowed into the offices, the office space of all the courthouse workers. You could go behind the desk and sit down at their desk and just talk to them, or you go behind a desk and just, rifle through all the public records. You didn't need a pass. People trusted you, right? And so, but they caught this guy eavesdropping, and they said, well, from now on, you can't come into the office. You have to come up to the counter and ask for everything. And this guy called it the Louis Poole treatment. Mm-hmm. He says, I'm going to give you the Louis Poole treatment unless you straighten up. So be honest, be forthright, be upfront about things, because you can write something about somebody that's really damaging to them, mm-hmm. and they don't see it coming, and that's just blatantly unfair. You don't want to do that. Yeah. So that's a key thing.
Yeah, don't be an asshole or you'll ruin it for everybody else.
That's right. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
Oh, one more question I had is, have you ever been sued, or has anyone attempted to sue you for anything you've written?
Several times.
Really?
Yes, several times, yeah.
Wow.
What's like the craziest story about trying to get sued?
Let's see. Oh, there's a great one. This woman was so angry. She called me up on the phone, and she was angry about what I wrote about her. She got charged with something or whatever. Just was so mad. And she was like almost spitting in the phone. When you're spitting mad, you can barely get the words out and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And she says something like, well, I'm going to file a lawsuit so fast you won't even know it. I thought, I won't even know it? What do you mean I won't even know it? If you file it, I'll know it. But yeah, we got threatened quite a bit with lawsuits just because people did not like, you tend to paint people in a bad light, especially criminals, and they will threaten you. There was a sentencing of a guy that I wrote about, and right after, I'm like sitting in the courtroom and they're sitting in front of me, and the guy stands up to go off to jail or something like that. He turns around to me and he says, you write one word about this and I'm going to break your fingers, and walks off. And I'm sitting there like, okay, well, I'm going to go write my story now.
Yeah. Let's just hope he stays in jail.
Yeah.
It's just like, it seems like a lot of these people don't have a clear understanding of what defamation law is.
Yeah, right. Well, that's true.
Has anyone ever gone through with suing you?
The actual lawsuit?
Yeah.
I cannot recall that. I think we've had the lawyers on the phone. Generally, you're pretty well protected as a journalist, as long as your stuff is accurate. It's without malice, as they say. You no reckless disregard for the truth. Those are the things.
Of course.
In that Dominion case that just got handed down, those things were off the table. That's why they lost that lawsuit.
Yeah, we talked about that last podcast.
Yeah, I mean that's why. But that's a high bar to set to get sued, and so journalists have a lot of protections. They have shield laws that protect them from being sued, or it's like the liability.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. It's more like, because when you work in a small town, it's more like one-on-one. You wrote that about me. It's more in your face than it is, say, legal jargon, or somebody files a lawsuit against you.
Yeah.
So you've never actually gotten in legal trouble?
I would say not.
Well, that is a good thing.
Yes. Well,
you saw some time.
Yeah. Well, great.
We can see you tomorrow.
Great. Yeah, I think the newspaper got sued once, and one of the publishers came up to me. I'm not sure what that was about, but she walked up to me and she says, "What's this about?" And I thought, I guess I forgot to tell the publisher in advance that this was going to be in the newspaper, this lawsuit against the paper. So that's a lesson learned.
So you wrote about...
Make sure your publisher knows what the heck's going on.
So you wrote about the lawsuit in the paper?
Yes, I did.
And the publisher
against the newspaper.
And the publisher didn't know about the lawsuit against the paper.
Yes, right.
Until she read the paper.
Guilty as charged.
And this was the publisher of the paper that was getting sued.
Yes. That's true.
That is...
Number one, keep your boss informed on what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like
Number one rule.
That is That is something crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I've got a little bit of a complex question, but I think it's relevant now. So these days, a lot of people, especially on the extreme sides of the political spectrum, have an innate distrust of media, traditional media especially, because of some belief they have that if it's not biased towards their views, it is inherently not neutral and biased towards the opposite point. How have you seen that evolve over your career?
Oh, it's gotten a lot worse in these last 5-10 years. It's really, the gloves have come off about how people behave, just as they have in Congress. They don't behave genteelly with each other. They just, they're in your face kind of thing, or tell you what they think right up front. I think the newspapers have lost trust because people have promoted this thing that newspapers cannot be trusted. And there are, just like in the days when we had lots of immigrants coming to the country, newspapers tailored their news to those particular immigrants. So they all read their news about their people, their country, and their livelihoods. And so now there's news stations like Fox News that tailors its news to a conservative bent. There's CNN and some others that tailor their news to a little more liberal bent. There's the Associated Press, which plays it straight down the line, almost to the point where it's boring to read. But
we gotta have sources somewhere.
Yeah, right. I mean, you've got to balance that out. And I really cringe when people complain to me that this newspaper is too liberal or this newspaper is too conservative. And I think what they're talking about is our opinion page sometimes. They read an opinion and they don't like it. But our reporters play stuff straight up, and they're not liberal or conservative. Now, everybody has a bias no matter what.
Yeah.
People feel one way or another. They feel empathy to somebody or something like that. And that can creep into their stories. And it's okay to be honest about that. But what we're trying to do is make sure that the information we're giving people is factual, correct. They can make up their own minds about it, and then we can have a discussion whether they feel it's biased or not. And I welcome anybody to call me anytime about those kinds of things. I want to hear why they feel that way about the paper, and what was it that actually set them off, that said, oh, you're too liberal, so we're not going to read you anymore. But it's tough. You have to fight that battle almost every day, and you have to be as cognizant of that all the time.
Yeah, it's a problem.
Yeah. It is. Hopefully it swings back the other way. I don't know if it ever will.
We hope people will trust media more. I mean, it's like, it's what we were taught here at the Obsidian, because, like, a lot of people get their news from social media, and I personally, I look at the news app on my iPad all the time, because, like, that's just what I do. It's like, and it's because we aren't the majority of people. The majority of people have other ways of finding news and that kind of stuff. And so it's sometimes tricky to reach people where they are and stuff. And so you have to find ways, like making videos like we do, and putting yourself out on social media to find these people who otherwise wouldn't have gotten the print version, which, by the way, I do get the print version. My dad reads it.
Mm-hmm. I don't get the print version. My thing... one thought I wanted to share about print versus traditional journalism is recently, more than recently, like in the past at least couple of years, people have been watching videos a lot more, it seems like, compared to actually reading it. Because it's so much easier to consume content through a video than...
Is it, though? I mean, to me, as the oldie, I think it'd take me a long time to go through a video to catch the gist of what's going on. Is that true or not true? I mean, are the videos short enough?
I think it's a little bit more of a combination of things. The seeming, it seems a little bit easier. Because when you read, you look. And when you watch a video, it seems easy. You click on the video, and it starts playing. You simply observe. As well as videos are more entertaining. And so people will say, they'll watch the video because it has more entertainment value.
Yeah, like
too.
I feel like it adds like a personality. Like there's a person telling you
Yeah.
what's happening, and there's a personality behind that person.
Yeah, and if you enjoy the person's personality, then that's the reason you watch the video.
Yeah, and then you'll consume more news if you like this person's personality. Like you'll be able to consume more information.
Yeah, like if you have a host of a show that talks to you and can speak right to you, like Milan, then and you like that works. I can see how that would work. Yeah, and I think that's it's not the future; it's happening now. I mean, it's just tremendously taken over compared to newspapers themselves, the hard copy kind of stuff.
Yeah.
To me, when I read something, I absorb it and I understand it. Yeah. If someone's telling me something, or from watching a movie or something, I don't. My mind's elsewhere usually. So that's a big difference, I think, in the generations. So, but that's okay.
Yeah. How many publications have you worked in, like in total, in your career, throughout going from college to, to that newspaper in Montana, to whatever long middle bit got you to come to the Bulletin?
Well, let's see. Probably five publications in Montana. Mm-hmm. Most of them are daily newspapers, so I'm really in that mode.
You're up in the morning working.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, it's just I used to work nights at papers, which is a whole different thing. You would work, like 3 p.m. to midnight or something like that. Mm-hmm. And I worked down in Klamath Falls at the paper down there. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of fun because that's, it's a small town. People appreciated the paper. Mm-hmm. A lot of fun that way. Mm-hmm. I don't think I've ever spread my wings and say wrote for a newsletter or done tried to write short stories or a book or columns. Like I'd love to be a columnist, but it's really tough to be a columnist. It just takes so much more brain power than I'm capable of right now. So there's that. So it's been about 5 to 6 dailies, and they've all been great. It's one of the things is like when you move from one job to the next, you think, oh God, I miss that job that I just left. Mm-hmm. And you're kind of concerned about the new job that you're in. But as you work with all the people that just love this type of work, the journalism, you just come over to their side almost immediately. Mm-hmm. And you just think, this is my family. This is the place where people really care about what they write about. And it's so much more fun. It's always been fun. I think I've never really had a bad experience in that.
I mean, that's why we're here, because it's so fun.
Yeah,
true. Yeah.
This is probably one of the funnest things I've ever done. We get to come here. We get resources to write our stories, interview people, and all that.
Make podcasts.
They give us this camera, these microphones, all this stuff.
Yeah. Well, and encourage the students that are coming up through high school to apply for this, because I think it's a great.
We know several of you who are watching who want to join us. So.
Yeah. True.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're accepting applications for next year, right?
Yeah, right. For the fall, I think, and then for next spring even.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a group coming in. It's staggered, I think.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. We're not doing applications for summer though, right?
No, that's a different program. Yeah. But I think we are or will be larger than the size of the Bulletin. Because I
think aren't we already?
You might have a bigger audience. I don't know.
Well, we don't have a bigger audience, but just our
staff.
Our staff, yeah.
Oh, the staff is definitely, yeah. Is it? How many kids? 20 or more?
Something like that.
Yeah, something like that. We have probably 20 by now.
We have 24 full-time people, but they're different jobs too. So.
Yeah, we'll be beating you guys soon.
Yeah. All right, well, bring it on, buddy. We'll see what happens.
Fight for viewers.
That's right.
I mean, we don't have Obsidian on those little news slots all around town, so...
Yeah, see?
We will soon.
You got to get out there. Marketing
is key. We got to make a print version.
Yeah, we're just going to replace yours. We're not even going to get our own.
Bring it on. I welcome competition. I think competition is one of the best things. That's what's kind of sad that's gone away in papers, that you don't have that competition.
Yeah.
We would compete with the TV stations just because we would try to beat them on the news every day. But we didn't have another newspaper to actually compete against, and that was kind of a drag.
Do you guys still try and compete with the news at all?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, I just, I see something, I go, why don't we have that? Yeah. Oh, yeah. It just gets your juices up.
Because I know they can produce content a lot quicker because they don't have to go to print or anything.
Yeah. It's yeah, there's a different. It's a different medium, I guess.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. But don't underestimate the time it takes to film and edit stuff. Like,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, still
that's true. Yeah.
I would work for KTVZ and they'd have stories out obscenely quickly sometimes.
Yeah, they would.
Yeah.
It's
I can't comment on that.
No, obviously not. Yeah, Liam has worked for a lot of places. It's like competition in journalism is nowhere near as competitive as there's a weird analogy, but I find it really funny. Like the grocery stores in Bend. Like, do you realize how many grocery stores there are in Bend?
A lot.
Like, so many that you could probably fit all of Bend into the grocery stores.
You think there's more grocery stores or breweries?
Probably breweries.
Yeah,
but,
I was gonna say there's.
But I think they are pretty competitive grocery store to brewery ratio.
Yeah.
We've gone a bit off topic there.
Yeah.
But there you are, competition analogies.
Yeah, right. It keeps you going.
Yeah, I love competition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, come fight us.
We'll see you on the street corner.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just to close it out, do you have like any final thoughts or anything you want to share with people before you head off?
Into the
off.
sunset.
Into the there's like a mist and it's like filled with papers and you just like enter with like one of those 1920s news reporters hats with that says press on it.
Little fedora.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, trust in the other people that you work with. I think, let them do what they do best. They will trust in you. And, it sounds a little corny, but boy, we have a wealth of experienced people here in this building. And they have been through certain things, just like some of these questions you've asked me about, getting sued, or what was a complicated story that you worked on, or some kind of crisis. Everybody's had those experiences, so you have to trust in their judgment when they say, this should play on the front page, this should not, this should go here, we should put that up, this needs more work, those kinds of things. We can't just rush out a product and hope that it's the best that we did. You need people in the background that are doing that. So it's very important, and it makes it a lot more fun, and it's much more satisfying when the final product comes out, because you know that it's been seen through several eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, subscribe to the Bulletin.
That's right.
I think that's it, right?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on, Gerry.
Oh, you betcha. My pleasure.
Volunteering.
Thanks for the meatloaf. It was good meatloaf.
It was good meatloaf.
Shout out market of choice.
Yes.
For
And root beer.
Yeah.
for this root beer. I don't drink fizzy
Gerry.
stuff, but
Oh, I'm sorry. Well,
it's all right.
next time,
Yeah.
water.
Water. I already have water. Yeah. Thank
Well,
you.
That's it,
Okay.
and we will see you guys next week.
That is right. Thank you, Gerry. Outro.